In the bustling heart of Senegal, a name echoes through prison walls and police stations alike, a name that has become a symbol of defiance, cunning, and mystery. This man, whose legend has only grown with time, achieved the impossible. He escaped from prison not once, not twice, but an astounding 12 times. Each daring escape sent shockwaves through the authorities and captivated the public's imagination. To many, he is seen as a modern-day Houdini. To others, a dangerous outlaw who humiliated the system again and again. His story isn't just about breaking free from prison walls. It's about breaking the limits of what the human mind can plan and what the human spirit can endure. Each escape revealed not just a flaw in the prison system, but exposed the larger weaknesses within the country's law enforcement and judicial structure. How could one man outwit guards, survive brutal conditions, and slip through the fingers of authorities a dozen times without facing permanent capture? It was a question that haunted officials and fascinated ordinary citizens alike. The criminal, known for his intelligence, charm, and fearlessness, often used a mix of strategic planning, manipulation, and sometimes pure boldness to make his getaways. From creating elaborate distractions to crawling through narrow tunnels or bribing poorly paid guards, every escape was a carefully crafted masterpiece. His ability to exploit every opportunity, no matter how small, made him a living nightmare for Senegalese authorities. Even after being caught, sentenced, and locked up in high-security prisons, he always seemed to find a way out, leaving behind stunned wardens and embarrassed officials. Rumors and myths about his escapes quickly spread, blurring the line between fact and fiction. Some said he could walk through walls, others believed he had supernatural help. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: he had become a legend. His reputation grew so large that even the mention of his name would cause unease among prison staff. Each transfer, each new facility that held him, was seen not as a solution, but as a ticking clock, a matter of when, not if, he would escape again. This is not just a story of a criminal, it is the story of a man who defied the system 12 times and left an unforgettable mark on the history of crime in Senegal. Long before he became Senegal's most notorious escape artist, he was just another boy growing up in the tough neighborhoods of Dakar. Born into poverty, his childhood was shaped by hardship, survival, and a constant struggle against the world around him. His parents, overwhelmed by financial difficulties, often struggled to provide even the most basic needs. School became a distant dream, and the streets quickly became his real education, a brutal training ground that taught him how to observe, adapt, and most importantly, survive. From an early age, it was clear he wasn't like the others. He possessed a sharp mind, an unusual charm, and an instinct for finding opportunities where others saw none. By the time he was a teenager, petty theft had become his daily routine. Snatching wallets, picking locks, and dodging authorities became second nature. But what truly set him apart was not just his skill, it was his fearless attitude. He wasn't afraid of getting caught because he believed he could always find a way out. As he grew older, his crimes became bolder and more calculated. He moved from small thefts to orchestrating larger heists, robbing businesses, masterminding burglaries, and even leading small gangs. His reputation on the streets grew quickly. He wasn't just another petty criminal. He was a strategist, someone who could plan a job with military precision and walk away without a trace. His ability to stay one step ahead of the police turned him into something of a myth among local criminals. However, no one can outrun the law forever. His first major arrest came after a high-profile robbery that embarrassed the local authorities. Determined to make an example out of him, the police launched a massive manhunt, sparing no expense to bring him in. When they finally caught him, the courts wasted no time. He was sentenced to a lengthy prison term. Many believed that would be the end of his story. A young man who flew too high, only to crash down into the cold, merciless system. But they underestimated him. Behind bars, he wasn't broken. Instead, he studied the prison's weaknesses the same way he once studied the streets. Every guard's habit, every door's flaw, every shift change, he memorized it all. His criminal career didn't end in prison. In many ways, it had just begun. The first escape came just 6 months after he was imprisoned, a move that shocked even the most seasoned officers. It was a rainy night, and the prison guards were relaxed, believing that the heavy storm would discourage any thoughts of escape. But while others slept, he worked. Using a small piece of metal he had hidden inside his shoe, he patiently loosened a rusted window bar in his cell over several nights. On that stormy evening, when the guards' patrols were irregular, he slipped through the opening, scaled a half-collapsed section of the outer wall, and disappeared into the darkness. His second escape was even more daring. Transferred to a high-security prison, he realized that brute strength alone wouldn't be enough. This time, he used manipulation. Befriending a low-level guard over months, he carefully gained his trust. With promises of sharing hidden money and tales of his reformation, he convinced the guard to smuggle in a small set of tools. On a routine maintenance day, disguised as a worker, he simply walked out the front gate under everyone's noses. Each of his 12 escapes displayed a different strategy, showing his ability to adapt to every environment. Sometimes it was brute force, breaking locks, scaling roofs. Other times, it was pure psychological warfare, exploiting guards' weaknesses, creating distractions with fake fights, or even staging illnesses to be moved to less secure hospital wings. One of the most legendary escapes involved a makeshift tunnel. In a dilapidated prison with outdated security, he, along with 2 other inmates, spent months digging a hole behind a large storage shelf in the prison laundry room. They used stolen spoons and plates, working only during mealtimes when the noise masked their digging. When the tunnel was complete, it opened up just outside the prison wall, hidden behind a trash dump. The night they escaped, prison officials didn't even notice they were gone until the morning head count. Despite each daring breakout, what made his escapes even more remarkable was his ability to blend into society afterward. He could vanish into crowded markets, assume new identities, and move from town to town before authorities could catch up. Every escape wasn't just a getaway, it was a calculated attack on a system that continually underestimated him. Each time he escaped, the walls of Senegal's prison system didn't just crack, they shattered under the weight of public humiliation. His repeated breakouts became a direct challenge to the authority of the government and exposed the deep-rooted weaknesses within the country's law enforcement and correctional institutions. Every successful escape was not only a personal victory for him, but also a loud, embarrassing failure for those responsible for keeping him behind bars. Prison officials, already working under outdated conditions and with limited resources, found themselves under intense scrutiny. Media outlets had a field day, broadcasting scathing headlines about the incompetence of the prison system. Citizens lost faith in the ability of the government to maintain even the most basic security standards. Questions echoed in Parliament and among senior government leaders. How could the same man outwit trained guards, fortified walls, and increased security measures 12 times? In response to the mounting criticism, authorities launched investigations after nearly every escape. They suspended officers, replaced prison directors, and introduced new protocols aimed at tightening security. Special task forces were formed specifically to hunt him down after each incident, often draining resources that were desperately needed elsewhere. New training programs were implemented for guards, surveillance equipment was upgraded, and cells were reinforced, all at great expense to the already struggling system. Yet despite all these efforts, he always seemed to find a crack to slip through, highlighting that the problems were not just physical, but deeply systemic. Corruption among low-paid guards, poor management, overcrowded facilities, and lack of accountability all played into his hands. His story became a symbol of the wider issues facing Senegal's criminal justice system, a mirror showing the vulnerabilities many had long chosen to ignore. For the authorities, every escape wasn't just about losing one prisoner, it was about losing public trust. The fear wasn't just that he was free, it was that he was making a mockery of the system itself. His legend grew larger with each successful getaway, and with it, the embarrassment of those sworn to uphold law and order. By the time of his 12th escape, He was no longer just a criminal in the eyes of the authorities. He was a symbol of their greatest failure. After his 12th and most daring escape, the authorities knew they could no longer treat him like an ordinary prisoner. He had become a national obsession, a ghost who could slip through iron bars and concrete walls with frightening ease. This time, the government decided to act swiftly and decisively. A nationwide manhunt was launched, involving not just the police, but also military units trained in urban tracking and special operations. His face was plastered across television screens, newspapers, and social media platforms. Roadblocks were set up on major highways, and random searches became a daily reality across the country. Despite the massive search operation, he managed to stay ahead of the authorities for weeks, using his old tricks: false identities, safe houses, and loyal contacts in the criminal underworld. However, this time, the net around him tightened faster than before. Acting on a tip-off, security forces finally cornered him in a remote coastal town where he had been hiding under a new name, working as a fisherman. The capture was quick, but quiet. Officials, keen to avoid another public embarrassment, transported him to a newly built maximum security facility under the highest level of secrecy. This prison, specifically designed to house the country's most dangerous inmates, features 24-hour surveillance, reinforced cells, and guards who work in rotating, unpredictable shifts, all lessons painfully learned from his previous escapes. Today, he remains in custody under these extraordinary security measures. For the first time in years, there has been no news of an escape attempt, yet many believe it's only a matter of time before he tries again. The authorities remain on constant alert, fully aware that the man they are guarding is no ordinary prisoner. As for what's next, rumors swirl constantly. Some say he is planning yet another escape, waiting for the right moment. Others believe he might finally be broken by the extreme conditions of his new confinement. A few even suggest that the government might secretly negotiate with him, offering a deal in exchange for information about how he manipulated the system so effectively for so long. One thing is certain: whether inside a prison cell or free on the streets, his story is far from over. He has already carved his name into Senegal's criminal history, and the world is watching to see what move he makes next.